and we would all go in there, and there'd be like 30 of us within the 50,000 person crowd there. But it wasn't. There was a lot more of us than I expected. Although I will say that probably something like 80% at least of the people there were there for WoW. So they did showcase a lot of WoW stuff. However, for the competitive play, there was a much larger audience watching the Starcraft, even the SC1 gameplay, not to mention the SC2 gameplay, than there ever would be for the WoW arena. And I actually think they did some live raids or something like that too, which is just ridiculous in my opinion, that they would showcase people fighting against computer opponents. I just think that's ridiculous. But anyways, I was over in the SC2 playing area, the tournament playing area, which is right by the WoW section, and yeah, there was not a big audience at all. People were going crazy for it, but people were going a lot crazier for StarCraft. Even just the loss of like one Zergling in one of the ZVZs, people were just losing their minds, going absolutely crazy. Actually, if you left the StarCraft watching area and you wanted to go play StarCraft 2, you could get right in because everyone was over there. So I do have to give a lot of credit to Blizzard. I did not see as much WoW stuff as I expected, and actually, even some of the art, a lot of the art was StarCraft focused, so I do have to give them a lot of credit. I actually think that Diablo 3 was given a lot more credit also than I expected as well. But yeah, they definitely kept WoW, I think, on a back foot even. I'll go as far as to say that.
Dejavu, are there any questions you want to take? I have a couple Zerg ones that I want to take, and I just want to know if you wanted to answer a couple Protoss ones.
You can go for it. Go take the Zerg ones for a bit.
Okay, so one of the questions I'm getting is, can the Changeling unit do damage when it morphs into enemy unit? Unfortunately, I didn't test that, so sorry that I can't answer that question. The other one is creep. Moving units faster on creep. Yes, certain Zerg units do move faster on the creep. I don't recall which ones, but it's not all of them. And in fact, there's a little tooltip on the bottom right-hand corner that says this unit will move faster on creep. I think the Infestor, the ground spellcaster, will move faster on creep. A couple of the Queen will move faster on creep, definitely. And actually, let me talk a little bit about the Queen. Very important for macro for the Zerg player. Just actually Imba for macro, because for basically 25 energy, you spawn 4 more larvae. And it's ridiculously powerful because it only costs 150 minerals to construct the Queen from the hatchery, only requires the spawning pool to be out for tech requirements, and it doesn't even require a larva to make the Queen. It just sits there. You can patrol it between all of your hatcheries. For 25 energy, you spawn 4 larvae on each hatchery, and this is how the larva spawning works. When you spawn it on a hatchery, there's a channeling bar, similar to WoW spellcasters that channel spells, that cools down, and after 40 seconds, the larva will pop off the walls of the hatchery and land on the ground. During that time, you can't spawn additional larvae, but once they pop off, you can put the channeling spell for spawning larvae once again. So essentially, you could have a hatchery that builds up like 50 larvae, and players will have to watch out for that because basically at any time you can morph in tons of units. And I thought that was a pretty cool mechanic, although I didn't really use that. And I know there is a couple of other questions here that I wanted to answer.
I think they actually maxed out the number of larvae you can have at any one time at 9, by the way.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I didn't test that out. So I guess there probably would be a max because it would be kind of imba to have a ton of units. The last question with Zerg that I wanted to answer was the Broodlord. This unit is a replacement for the Guardian, and holy crap, it is imba. Well, maybe not imba. It's super strong. It's crazy strong. Think about the Guardian on freaking steroids, and combined with the Queen's ability to spawn Broodling. That's how crazy it is. It morphs from the Corruptor. The Mutalisk no longer has an additional morph. It's just a Mutalisk, but the Corruptor, the Zerg anti-air unit, it morphs from the Corruptor. It costs 2 more supply to morph out. It costs 150 more gas and 150 more minerals, so it is expensive as hell. But once you get the Broodlord, it is really slow. It's even slower than the Guardian, I think. It basically comes out of the cocoon from the Corruptor, and it comes with 2 additional flying broodlings next to it. So basically, it's this Broodlord that flies around. It's a huge, like, huge like eel in the air, and it has two little creatures that fly next to it. Its attack is it shoots its broodlings at the ground. When they hit the ground, they do a ton of damage. I think it was 20 or something like that. And once they hit the ground, they become a ground broodling, similar to the queen's broodlings that spawn. And those continue attacking on the ground as well. So these units are very, very strong. They have tons of HP too, 250 HP for the brood lord. And when the broodlings actually hit the ground, they probably last for about 5 seconds, but the broodlord continues firing broodlings at the target, and it's just the damage that it racks up and accumulates is extremely fast. If you have 5 broodlords attacking a command center, it will level the command center if the command center doesn't lift off in about 8 seconds, 8 to 9 seconds, I would say. It's very crazy, and the broodlings just mass up very quickly.
I also want to mention something about that because I know you used one of these on me in one of our test rounds. Actually, my units, that even if they were anti-air and anti-ground, they would target fire the broodlings down first. So, not to mention the broodlings would get in the way. If you wanted to go and run at the broodlords, you couldn't do it because they were in the way, and your units would target fire the broodlings on the ground first. So, yeah, it's definitely a sick unit, a sick addition to the Zerg arsenal.
PhD, do you want to address real fast what other abilities are on the Overseer? I never actually trolled one for a while, so I don't know what actually was on it.
Okay, so I remember there was make the little transforming thing, the changeling. There was, I know Overlords had the spawn creep on the ground, and Overseers actually lose that ability when they morph into an Overseer. You know, I don't really remember what the other abilities were, actually. Unfortunately, yeah. If I recall it, I'll bring it up later on in the podcast. But one thing I do want to mention, there was another question. What does the Creep Tumor do? That comes out of the Queen, if I recall correctly. It's an ability of the Queen. The other Queen's ability, by the way, is give 200 HP to any unit or building for the Zerg. But the other ability that the Queen has is Spawn Creep Tumor. It's basically this little invisible eyeball, I think, or a little like egg sac that goes into the ground, into the creep, and it acts as basically a creep colony, and it just makes more creep for you. So some of your units will move faster. And I know Phrank will have a little bit to say about that with regards to its invisibility and pathing.
Yeah, actually, I tried to see what it did because I had no idea. Actually, HD was kind of holding out on me here because I was running a Marine around like an idiot trying to figure out what this thing did. I'm thinking it's like maybe a mine or something, and I had no idea what it did because I had never played Zerg. And it just does. It messes with your pathing a little bit. It's kind of like this tiny little wall that gets in the way. I don't know if they're going to change that or not, but for me, it really didn't make too much of a difference. I mean, you're not really going to place a wall of these things down. It's just a waste of queen energy when you could just be spawning larvae at the same time. And I do want to cover one question really quick, and then I'm going to pass off to Dejavu because there's this one question that I do want him to answer because I want to know the answer to it as well. Yeah. So I just want to cover really quickly about the Changeling. The Changeling is essentially like a scout. It does walk past even detecting units. So like let's say there's a cannon up, it will walk right past it. What you have to do is it does run out of life, so it will die kind of like a spawn broodling would in SC1. However, it doesn't do damage, and if you just right click on it, I mean like move to it, you will kill it. So if you suspect that there's something in your army that's not that's not yours and it's not supposed to be there, just go around telling them to move on top of every unit and it should cover it. But at the same time, you're really not going to use your APM to look around and say, oh, there's one of my Marines running around my base. You're not going to think to send a unit back to go and kill it kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely think it will be an effective scout. But yeah, I do want to pass off to Dejavu about this warp-in mechanics question because I am actually extremely curious as to how this works also.
Okay, so warp gates and warp and mechanic. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so to start with, at your cybernetics core, you can research tech. It's really cheap. I think it's like 50 minerals and 50 gas, and you research warp gate upgrade, and it's actually a free upgrade. You can transition your gateways between warp gates and traditional gateways. When they're in traditional gateways, you simply set the rally point, and they'll move right there. When you change them into warp gate, I think that it takes about seconds or so for them to make that transition. What you have at that time is that you can no longer just simply produce a unit and have it rally. You have to tell it where to be produced, and the time for it to be produced is somewhat less. I think it's something like 10 to 15% less warp in time, and you can warp in any place where you have power. So you can warp in into any pylon area, or you can warp into a place where you have your shuttle is actually also it can also actually make a power zone, and you can actually warp into there. And someone was asking about the exact mechanics, like what do you click, what do you press. All you do is you go to your warp gates, and you just click Z for Zealot, and you click where you want him to be produced.